Before I met Dan, he had Lido Shipyard install a new transom in quiet tune. They planked it up and caulked it in the traditional manner, just like the boat had been built. Dan was never really all that happy with it. The seams always showed. I had come up with a method of building and installing transoms that made them absolutely fair and stable. After seeing several of these on the boats I had restored, Dan wanted a AYHENA transom on Athena. The transom had been recently replaced. It really wasn't that bad. But the quality of the teak wasn't all that great, and it was already starting to move. Remembering the golden rule, that is, the one with the gold makes the rules, Tapawinga was getting a new AYHENA transom. The first thing we do is take a pattern of the transom. Then, if there is camber in the transom, we make a pattern of that. I laminate the transom over a mold using 4 layers. To keep weight down and rot resistance up, the first 3 layers I used Port Orford cedar or heart cypress. The first 2, the grain is run from port to starboard with the seam staggered. We epoxy these 2 layers together first. The next layer is laid from top to bottom, across the grain from the first 2 layers. Of course, the outside layer, the grain runs from port to starboard, athwartships. And I try to make the outside layer a little thicker, at least 3/8 of an inch thick. I glue up the outside 2 layers together using a pre-thickened epoxy resin. The new transom is then cut out to the pattern and installed in one piece. This laminated panel now strengthens and stabilizes the whole stern of the boat. I have never had any of these transoms crack their paint or move. We also remove the cockpit deck and the fuel tank and check the condition of the hull planking, frames, and floors under the cockpit. What we found was that the strut blocking and the blocking behind the shaft tubes was wasted. And those 2 runs of planking that were in the ways of the struts and shafts weren't looking all that great either. This time, we replaced this planking and blocking with teak. The frames and floors, though, were in great shape. One of the reasons they were in great shape was because when these boats were built, they coated everything under tanks and in lazarettes with red lead primer. Still today, this is one of the best coatings to help prevent rot. Because we had been hauled out for several months, the bottom planking had completely dried out and the seams had opened up to the point where the caulking was just falling out. Rather than recaulk in the traditional manner, we decided to try something new. We reefed all the cotton caulking and the seam compound out of the bottom seams. Then we sanded the seams, top and bottom, with a 36 grit abrasive. Then we completely filled the seams with 3M 5200, a polyurethane caulking compound. This would help glue the planking together instead of wedging it apart like traditional caulking does. This worked very well on Athena, and I have since done this to other boats that I have restored. There are some reasons that this has worked when I do it, and it has failed when other people try it. One of the first things is that the wood has to be absolutely dry. Even though the polyurethanes are a moisture cure, they will not stick to wet wood, especially if the wood is saturated with salts. Athena had been kept in the delta that is all fresh water, so we didn't have to rinse the salt out of the seams. For this to work, the seams have to be clean and dry. The polyurethane caulkings expand as they cure. This leaves a bead or a welt on the outside of the seam. We cut this off with a very sharp abrasive. You will notice that now the caulking looks like a sponge. It's all full of holes. These will get all filled as we apply the coatings. We will go over that in our next video. These videos are made possible by efforts through the Maritime Preservation Trust. Your contributions and support make these videos possible. Please don't forget to subscribe, share with your friends, and become a member of the Maritime Preservation Trust.